Perhaps I'll open that up to the audience. I don't know if you want to say anything. What I'll do is I'll take 3 or 4 things in a go. So questions or statements. And if you would like to say who you are, make a statement, ask a question, keep it quite a little succinct. So any hands up, and I'll take a row of people. More than one. 1, 2, this side. 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Great, thank you. Just say
Thank you. This is a question for Richard.
Who are you?
Oh, sorry. My name is Claire Core. My question is directed to Richard Horton. He earlier mentioned bloggers who he says has a right to blog what they do, and he has a right not to read what they blog.
Yes.
And was he? Did he have any bloggers or blogs in mind?
I was being flippant. Okay.
Dan Pinlot. How was it that your sort of blogs broke out and became sort of well known? Was it a sort of gradual process by which you sort of got new other bloggers and then it sort of expanded from that, or was it sort of one post that suddenly got picked up and took off? Secondly, what does Twitter mean for bloggers?
At the back for somebody.
Yeah, Helen here, Stacey. Should bloggers strive to be objective?
Ralph Scott. What are the panel's thoughts on accountability in blogging? Because obviously mainstream media there's lots of kind of legal restrictions and report. I'm thinking kind of specifically Guido and all the stuff surrounding William Hague that happened a few months ago. Yeah, that's essentially my question is, are blogs unaccountable, and if they are, what does that mean for reading?
Gee, thanks. I think to address your point first, it was something of flipping points, I guess. But there are so many blogs, and so many blogs that look to do with political stuff. And as I said, I don't need to read again that Ed Balls links a lot. I don't need to. You know, there's this sort of mirror room thing that goes on with some blogs, and they're all reflecting each other, and they're all sidebarring each other. And read one, you've read them all. You know, so some are interesting or amusing, I suppose. Amusingly written, but basically, I don't have to. The thing is, you don't want to read them. You don't have to read them. They're just there. If they chime with you, if you have sympathy with them, fine. Go and gorge yourself, enjoy it. But it's a very open access way of looking at things. Will Twitter reflect blogging? No, not as long as you can embed blog links into Twitter. I think you'd probably be okay with that because, okay. For the stuff I was writing, it was really Twitter. You had to have a big, long screen, an empty screen to fill up, and that's what I did. Did it? I have to say, the day after I won the Orwell Prize, the hits went through the roof. But there was a healthy following up to them. And speaking as a sort of freelance blogger, yeah, it is quite nice to watch the picks per day creep up. There's no doubt about that. It's a nice feat to the ego, and when you start getting into a conversation with your people, with your contributors and commentators, that's also interesting. It keeps you honest as well. If you leave comments open, people can just put pretty much what they want in there. That's sometimes chasing it.
Yeah, can I just answer those, and I'll come back to it. There's an interesting question of the extent to which there is one world which is the blogger's world, as it were, and then there are particular blogging worlds, and then another world in which actually it's the interrelationship with other media that drives people to you. I mean, that's all that's the evolution, but I've answered the other questions.
So for me, I started off as a anonymous police website called Inspector Gadget, which you may or may not have come across. Gadget's writing some stuff. And I started off as just commenting on there. I think a lot of bloggers get into it that way. They comment on other people's sites. And then I found that my comments were starting to get longer than his posts, and then I thought it's time for me to do my own thing. And it was free and it was available and it was anonymous, which goes to the point that was made over there. Anonymity of the internet. That's going to be under challenge, I think, in the next in years to come. Anonymity on the internet is going to be a harder place to find and a harder thing to get. Bad people will find it easy to do because bad people set ways up to make it's easy to do. Good folk will find themselves compromised, and that's the way it goes. Should people be accountable for what they say on the internet? Yeah, if you, this is more your thing, I think, but if you say something that is grossly wrong and damaging against somebody, they should have some comeback on you. I think that's going to be right. So if you're publishing it out there for lots of people to read, then yeah, if there's a damage done, there's a real damage done. But I'll leave that to an expert in the field.
Well, self-publication is just fascinating from a legal point of view. 20, 30 years ago, to actually publish something was a big deal. To publish anything for a publisher or a newspaper, you had a commissioning cycle, you had sub-editors, you had lawyers. It's interesting that some of the most abusive libel cases before the internet involved pamphleteering. For example, McLibel, who hadn't had the opportunity of being lawyered and sued. There's a case, Toy Story, which was about a pamphlet which was sent to a number of people about alleged war crimes. And when pre-internet libel law encountered self-publication, there were obvious inequalities, abuses, and those, when the internet occurred, it didn't become a great surprise that the mass self-publication of the internet led to legal problems, and that the law is still catching up. I'm a defence solicitor for Paul Chambers, who is the defendant in the Twitter joke trial, which is the most bizarre prosecution one can conceive of. And it's just because the CPS and the courts just do not get social media and didn't quite realise the intention behind. But there is a catch-up phase.
They don't get out.
They haven't got a sense of humour often. But even the police, of all people, accepted Paul Chambers was making a joke. This is what's so bizarre. So there is going to be a catch-up. At Twitter, not all bloggers tweet. I know there's an assumption that almost all bloggers do, but not all of them do. You'll notice that most of the bloggers who actually didn't have a great deal to say in the first place, especially libertarians who are basically liberals who still live with their parents, have actually more or less abandoned their blogs. They're just tweeting their inane comments on Twitter, because that's all they've got to say is catchable by a number of characters. But tweeting, for example, in the New Statesman, I understand, because people here can correct me, but most of the hits which go onto the bloggers' pages come from other social media like Twitter and Facebook, not from people who are going onto the front page of the New Statesman. So there is a link. I don't blog as much as I used to because there are things I can just tweet about, and so there is going to be an interrelationship, but they are different things. Should we strive for accountability and objectivity? No. I think the readers of the blogs should assess them on that basis. There's a brilliant form of informal reputation management, credibility within the blogosphere and within social media. As a libel lawyer, it's very interesting because reputation, in classical English legal terms, is almost like a property right. If somebody infringes your reputation, you have a right, almost like trespass, to turf people off from infringing your reputation. Libel and trespass to property are the only two torts which do not require proof of damage before you can sue somebody. Because conceptually, they are very similar. You have your reputation. But in Twitter and blogosphere, you have no right to how many followers you've got, or how many hits you've got, or what other bloggers say you are. It is incredibly peer-reviewed. And so, to your question about whether there are blog posts which break you out or whatever. In my case, it was both. I gained a reputation as Jack Kent as being somebody who can explain legal issues. But there was one blog post I wrote, which more or less went round the world. It was the day after Simon Singh, just down the road, had lost his preliminary hearing, and the court had held that he had to prove that the BCA were being deliberately dishonest. And I wrote a blog post after a quite heavy night out with Robert Dugans, who's here, and Patrick Reed from Index and Censorship, where we worked out our strategy of what we're going to do next. And I called it an illiberal ruling. And I set out why it was. And before I knew it, that had about 20,000 hits within hours. It's because everybody just wanted something to explain the Simon Singh. So, yes, certain times blog posts help, sometimes it's peer review. But there are a whole range of dynamics, at play here. And I do sometimes think whether blogging is a fad. Is it like Citizens Band Radio? Is Jack of Kent nothing better than Chris Christopherson's Rubber Duck? Is it no better than my fellow brother Tony Hancock talking to other radio hams who are only talking to each other because they've got the means to be able to talk to each other about things, somehow keeping those 1960s marriages together? Who knows? But at the moment it does seem to be doing things different to what mainstream journalism. It does seem to be using the internet in ways which contribute to public debate, so I think it may survive, but I don't think one should take it for granted.